Okay, we're live.
3 minutes.
It is. I did not shut it off because I didn't want to forget to turn it back on.
They're practicing, yeah. It is live at this point, so. Yeah, right.
Just test it.
The,
No, you need to work on it.
the 5 people.
There you go.
Whereas when I like look over there, it looks like I'm looking off into space.
Yeah, it does.
We do have one on YouTube as well.
Oh, good, see, so. Well, then, in good nature, we're still a couple minutes early.
2.
So the numbers are starting to count up there and a few more people will show up here and.
Do we have anyone that you know of that is speaking, that is participating online?
Not
have
that I know.
Heard anything, did you? Okay.
We'll just have to,
I'll keep an eye on the hands if the
Yep.
hand goes up.
all right.
And you want me to show the warrant on the TV?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, even though there's ones behind. Everyone who's here, there's extra town warrants and town meeting books if you want to pick them
Say.
up in the back. We'll put them up on the screens, but if you want to,
Annual.
Right on it.
Turn the
reports are-
TV on, would you turn the TV on? Yes. Oh, it's on, okay, perfect.
there you go.
It's the
The
warrant.
last one we'll see there.
I saw you.
Yeah.
I saw your post out there. We need a bigger table. Look at this with the both of us. When there's 3 of us, we're
Yeah.
gonna need a table that's
I
like
could-
twice this
I
size.
can get more this way.
You can push
These
more,
are the
yeah, I can move
Signed,
over.
it can go back to.
I can
All right,
control it.
and a lot of this stuff we can probably get rid of. But it's gonna be
It can go further.
Yeah,
out.
it's gonna be a very
Can you
busy
unhook
table.
me From the bottom of your
Mhm.
table. Thank you.
Yeah,
Perfect.
don't.
I do.
Don't trip on that. I bet you have to abuse it.
I'm good.
Cameras are quite.
Trying
I know,
It's,
and we
uh,
need to redo this to
then-
say your voice will be
There it is.
captured or something.
Just want to make sure
and
it's
then-
on the TV.
Yeah, and that,
And this is the same notice, right?
yeah,
See, so we already got rid of one piece of paper.
we already got one, you know what, we'll just leave it in the middle of the table.
Excellent.
Well, hopefully this here.
I'll make this go into like presentation mode.
It has to be.
I always forget.
To come to its.
Def,
23,
yep,
24. Like the last.
yep, we got a few more.
Mm.
All right, I get 6:30, you ready to roll?
Ready to roll.
Ready to roll? Roger's ready to roll? All right. Welcome everyone to the, what are we calling this? The pre-town meeting. So we have an opportunity to go through the warrant, a few announcements, setting of expectations before we start. Announcements, don't forget this coming Saturday, hopefully the weather will hold out. You've got Earth Day, fishing derby and egg hunt down at South Common. So do that. And for setting expectations, I know that this meeting is a little bit different than other board meetings that you may have gone to. We will not be voting. We will not be discussing. We will not be deliberating. We will not be changing anything on the warrant. So what you see is what will be voted at town meeting. The focus of this meeting is not solely on the school budget. The school budget is one part of this entire warrant meeting. With that, if you do have a question, as a reminder, if you are a non-resident, you are not allowed to actively participate in this meeting. If you do wish to ask a question, there's a sign-up sheet somewhere. Thank you. If you could put down your name and address, and when you stand up, announce who you are and where you live. You have 3 minutes, no more. Let me introduce you to Mr. Gavel here. Just want to give you all a heads up. I ask you just to respect the process. You know, if you're at 3 minutes, I'm gonna stop you, and if you keep going, I guarantee I can outnoise you than that. So please help with that.
And although we're not debating things up here, it's okay to ask questions and we can
Yes.
answer questions as long as we stay sort of factual. And so we're not expressing too many opinions here, but we're trying to make clarification. Generally, the goal of this meeting is to help sort of speed up town meeting a little bit in that, you know, there's a chance it's less intimidating to stand up in front of a room of 20 or 30 people and ask questions at a meeting designed to ask questions and in front of 200 or 300 people at town meeting. And it's a chance because we're several weeks ahead of town meeting that the answers here, you know, allows people to ruminate more over where the various things are. So we have a short town meeting when it comes to number of warrants this year. But that doesn't mean they're not, they're pretty substantial and will affect the operations of town.
Correct. Also, let's see, when Scott and I met at 6 o'clock, there were a number of items that, I love how I do on my note taking. There are some items that we will skip only because they're repetitive. And if you go back and look at warrants till the end of time or the beginning of time, it's going to be, here's a late bill that we need to pay. Here's the grant money that comes for cable access. We know that there are other items that we'll probably spend more time on, so we're going to skip them, but that doesn't necessarily mean if you're looking at them and go, but wait, ask, and we will be more than happy to do that. I do see FinCom here and library here and CPA here. I don't know if anybody else is here, but if there are items on the warrant that are not select board, hopefully folks have come to talk about that. If not, Scott and I will do our best to muddle through. All right. We all good on expectations? Hello. All good? All right, away we go. So, starting out, we are going to skip over Articles 1 and 2. And we're going to start at Article 3, which is repurposing library capital funding article. Victoria, I don't know if you want to come up
Oh.
and speak about it. Oh, sorry. All right, scratch. Never mind. I know you did. I appreciate that. At
Yes,
the mic,
yeah.
you need to turn it on because it's battery. So going to
There's a
talk a
button at
little
the-
bit about the polling pads that we will have in place for our election. Take it away, Mr. Wysocki.
Okay, I just wanted to let everybody know that the town meeting will be the first time that we're using poll pads to check people in. Typically, we've been doing that in paper in the past. If you remember, you have your 3 lines where you have to line up by your street. Hopefully, we will no longer need to do that. The poll pads are basically an iPad and they have the entire check-in database on there and it's synchronized across there. So we hope to speed things up by allowing you to check in at any available person to do that. If anybody is interested in the training that we'll be having, that's on the 22nd at 6:30, I believe. It'll be in the room 218, which is just down the hall from here. Also, I'd like to announce that we are always looking for volunteers to assist both at town meeting and with local and state federal elections. If you'd like to do that, you can either see me or Beth as the deputy warden. There's 2 other things I was supposed to do, Beth. What was it? Mail-in ballots. Remember that if you are accustomed to receiving a mail-in ballot, you'll have to request that for a local election. It will not be automatically sent to you. So that's something you need to talk to the clerk's office regarding. Eloise can help you out. There will also be advanced voting hours as typical, should you wish to take advantage of those for in-person voting. Okay. Additionally, prior to the local election or any election, we do a session where we test the vote tabulator and also advanced opening of any mail-in ballots. Those are public meetings and we encourage the public to attend. If you have any questions about how the tabulator works, how the process works, how we actually certify it before the election, please stop by. Generally, there's only about 4 or 5 of us there, so there'll be plenty of opportunity to talk. And voter registration deadline is April 25th. And thanks to Beth for keeping me straight. So thank you for your time.
Awesome.
If there's any questions, we'll be over here.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Tim. All right. Now, we're gonna go down the articles. So as I mentioned, we're skipping 1 and 2 because those are repetitive year over year. So the first one up is for library. Victoria, I don't know if you wanna step up and have a chat about it. You can come up here and talk to me. It's close.
Over to the table?
Yep.
All right, so one of the biggest barriers in our library is that our children's collection is split on 2 floors, which is not ideal for most families. So we'd like to be able to use this money that was from 2006 to purchase some new shelving, better shelving for the children's room, so we can move all of the collection in there, which would also free up space on the upper level that we could make into a teen area, which doesn't really exist in the library or in town, a space only for high school students to hang out, or create a seating area or anything else. We'd be asking for community input on the final plans, but we'd mostly be using the funding for new furniture.
And to be clear, this is money that has already been allocated. And so the when it was allocated in 2006, it only had restrictions on what it could be used for. So this is just expanding the use of that money. And so there's no additional town funds. There's no additional tax dollars going in. This is just using money that was already set aside.
Correct. And that amount is $14,775. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Questions on that? Nope. All right. Number 4, we are down to the operating budget. So FinCom, Scott, if you want to come up and talk briefly about it, probably bring a chair. Keep your comments brief, please, just because we want to move this along.
All right, so from what was mailed out to everybody, it's really page 25 has the annual report from the Finance Committee. The major highlight to this budget is the fact that we are continuing with a 4% levy increase. This will be the 3rd consecutive year of having a 4% or greater levy increase when our target is 2.5%. Also, one of the negatives we had was the new growth has been coming in low. So the new growth projection is dropped from 300,000 to 200,000. So that impact the available funds. When you get into the budget, there's obviously the schools are a big part of this. One thing to point out is unlike last year, there was lots of collaboration meeting with the schools. The administration met with us 3 times in December, February, and March, and not to mention other discussions during that time. We have not closed completely, or what was recommended by the Finance Committee is $106,000 shy of what was approved by the school committee. So it is unlike last year where we were looking at a huge difference. This year the difference is significantly smaller. So one of the highlights that, or maybe a low light on that, if you read on the BBRSD, is you'll see that the debt repayment increased, where we typically see that dropping down, but it turned out that the schools had not been assessing the town for one of their bonds for each of the last 2 years. So they were still paying it, but basically what happened is it was now seen, and that was added to the assessment for the debt repayment. Now that you see that one big boost this year, that amount will still be there through 2033, but you won't see the big jump up next year. But that was one of the surprises that we got hit by this year. Otherwise, we had some increase in the public safety as the police union new union agreement went into effect. And probably one of the things that we went through, and a lot of this was with the select board made a lot of decisions, and also the town administrator, but significant reductions were made throughout the budget. You can see at the bottom of 26, these were the town administrator recommended budget cuts, and likewise down to the select board budget cuts. One of the more significant things to take note is that we're looking to reduce the budgeted amount for health insurance by $100,000. thousand. And that's not because our health insurance's percentage is decreasing. We're doing that by reducing the excess that was always put in, because obviously you don't know if people will, get hired or people have change of status that can start collecting, going on to the health insurance. And also one of the things that we're going to do that, what this budget recommends that would reduce our exposure significantly, and this was led by the select board, is basically any elected position that received any type of salary previously would be eligible to be on the town health insurance plan. So basically there were 10 positions that were eligible under that criteria. We are recommending reducing the salaries, which were all very small, to zero. It's a very small dollar amount savings, but it will eliminate an exposure of 10 people that could either a number were on or would be exposure to being added to the health insurance plan. So that's how we came up with the reduction in the health insurance budget. So that's a quick summary. And if you have any questions.
Through the chair. I just wanted to clarify on the elected officials, it's stipends for board and committee members. That does not include the town clerk.
Right, the town clerk is elected, but also works 20
As
to
an
30 hours a
employee.
day as an employee, and so that position still is eligible for health insurance. It is sort of the select board, board of health, assessors, moderator, I think were the ones that we zeroed out to get to your 10.
Yes, correct. There was 3 on each of those boards plus a moderator for 10.
Any questions from folks in the audience? Got to go to the mic.
Oh, sorry.
Introduce yourself and tell us where you live. Nice to see you.
Sure,
Just
Mary
wait.
Reddington, 35 Pleasant Street. Can you explain the debt repayment that I didn't understand how you explained it for the schools?
So basically, there's for Tohoto, they actually had 2 separate bonds. There's one that they refer to as the 2018 bond that was taken out. So those should have been assessed, and these should have been assessed to us each year, both us and Boylston. And that one bond, which was a smaller amount of the 2, significantly smaller of the 2, the last 2 years, the schools had not assessed either us or Boylston as they should have. So they were paying it. I mean, apparently they had the funds to pay it, but it should have been assessed to the towns each of those previous 2 years. So they've caught that error, and we are being assessed it, and that bond will go to fiscal year 2033. So as a result, that's why you see that bump showing about $91,000 increase in our debt repayment, as opposed, it should have never been, I mean, we should have been paying that amount all the past years. It's just the last 2 years, it was missed by the school
But
administration.
Scott, to be clear, we're not paying the last couple of years. This is just what it is currently
Correct.
going
The
forward.
schools the schools had funds to pay it. Now they are assessing it to us as they should have been, and we will be paying, and this is approximately the amount that we'll be paying. It'll decrease or just yearly, but that bump of dollar amount will be the same going forward through fiscal year 2033.
They've had 2 loans, and the smaller one they forgot to charge us for the last couple of years. They've remembered to charge us this year. They're not charging us historically. They paid it, and so they found a way in surplus and other lines or out of savings to pay it. But legally, we owe it. Our
Right.
agreement with the school says we pay for a percentage of the bonds. And so they have properly charged us for it these years.
Right, and the town meeting vote binds us to pay that debt as well.
Any other questions? Oh. This is also a test of coordination to see you can get back to the mic with both like.
Thank you, Peg.
This
I
is why you'll
appreciate
notice that
that.
I'm sitting.
I have a council on aging question. Is that part of this
Mhm.
questioning
And
time?
you are?
Oh, right. I'm Evie Dewick. I live at 48 Highland Street in Berlin,
Thank you.
Massachusetts.
Zip code?
Sometimes I live there.
Okay.
Okay. So a question for you. I know, well, first of all, thank you. You guys have done a great job and I appreciate that. I know how hard it is to work on all these numbers, FinCom, you guys, everybody. So kudos. I have a question about the wages part-time, which I understand is for council and aging. I understand that is the bus driver
Mhm.
and I see that you cut it and I understand why you've been working with the Worcester Regional Transportation Authority. So my question is, let's see, how do I put this in a question form? Okay, if Melissa, our Council on Aging Director, would like to consider using our van, which we do own, would she be able to use the funds that are listed in the van expense line, which you adjusted upwards by $10,000? Or would she, because it's not in that wage line? I guess what I'm just wondering about is, can we give her the option of sorting out what's the best way to serve our seniors? Instead of deciding for her
Mm.
that she needs to use WRTA.
The $10,000 we put in the expense line item is to allow that type of flexibility.
So
And
if she,
so we've not had a van driver for almost 9 months at this point.
Oh.
And so the amount of energy it's going into to try to find and keep a driver has been sort of a drain on being able to do other things. And so the intent was to say, we're not going to continue trying to do that. We put, again, some of the money into the expense line item with the idea that you'll spend some time to figure out what might be a better way of doing transportation for seniors and using some of that $10,000 for that.
okay, good, because I see it's a big need. So I appreciate that you're paying attention to that.
Mm.
So the answer that I hear is that she still has the option to hire somebody if she wants to, even though it doesn't show up in the wages.
I don't believe she has the ability to hire someone. She has $10,000 to figure out other solutions, but as an
Okay.
employee, that is not.
So she can't hire, since it's not in that line, she can't hire somebody.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm trying to go back and look at my notes. They're in this mess somewhere. But she listed the amount of people who are actually taking advantage of WRTA. That there are spots in Hudson and Marlboro, 3 points in Marlboro. And,
The
oh, there it
first
is,
one.
33 rides, 9 redos, of those riders. And she's also looking into potentially talking to Clinton that way, in case people need to go there to figure out scheduling, who would be responsible. Hey, I have an appointment in Leominster, I can't get there. Is there any way that the van could drive me to Clinton and then Clinton could drive me to? So we're still working that, but we've seen an uptick with people taking the WRTA compared to that. The bus is open from what, 6:45 to
6:45 to
6:45
AM.
in the morning to 6:45 at night, and is also operating on Saturday, where our COA van had very limited hours. This other van has far more expansive opportunity for people to take it.
Good. I
And-
guess,
And anyone can take it. It's just not a COA van. If I wanted to ride up to the Market Basket, I could call them and they could come pick me up. Well, I am a senior. All right, so somebody who's younger than I am. But he wanted to ride up to the Market Basket. You're younger than
I am, but not, I still qualify.
Oh, for God's sake. All right, Amy, you don't. You're young. If she wanted to ride to the Market Basket, then she could pick it up. So it's a much broader
Yeah.
base that we're trying to hit.
We did just have a call with the WRTA on Tuesday about potential options. Clinton unfortunately is not an option, but there may be other towns that we can partner with. Potentially to expand either the MWRA service and add in some WRTA service, because we're a border town. That's where we run into the issue of trying to get folks both east and west to Worcester. So we are exploring those options.
well, I appreciate that. And I just, even though I'm supposed to be asking questions, I'd like to give a shout out to Melissa Sargent, who's our new Council on Aging Director, who's been doing a great job. So I want to support her in whatever way we can. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Awesome. Any other questions? Oh, we have one in the audience.
Hold on, that would be Bob
Yeah.
Blair. Let me, let him speak. Oh, no, hold on.
Sure.
I'll let him speak from here. Hold on a moment, Bob. All right, Bob, you should be able to speak. But you have to unmute yourself.
You hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. Just to correct one thing, we haven't been without a driver of the COA van for 9 months. We've been without a driver since the end of December. That's when the one driver we had left or stopped driving. And the MWRTA option that has just kicked in recently is limited to Hudson, Berlin, and Marlboro in a more limited way. So it's good for the town seniors in that it can take them up to Highland Commons, and they can cross the mystical border between Berlin and the market and Lowe's and all of that. It does not deal with transporting Berlin seniors anywhere else in the area that the WRTA would be able to carry them. And I believe, based on the talks that were had today with WRTA, that there's not any options that they had offered all required us to hire a driver, which has been the Achilles heel of our efforts to get the van rolling on the road. So that part of the problem is not solved. I would be really disappointed if the town opted to sell the van for cheap, and we wouldn't have the option to push that service back to the people if we were able to get cooperation from another town, or if the elusive willing driver suddenly showed up and was able to drive the van. I think it's I hear a lot of requests for rides. And I think sometimes when we say people don't ask for rides, it's because the ride availability has been so sketchy for so long, they probably don't rely on it, so they don't bother calling. But I think the ideal is to get it up and operating 5 days a week and reliably. The trick is finding drivers.
I mean, it's definitely still a work in process, with this. I think that the van opens up a lot more opportunities than what we had, the MWRTA van. So we're just going to keep plugging away at it and see what we can do.
Yeah, it gets us across the border, but it doesn't go to the other destinations that we want to go to, Clinton and Worcester and so forth, that are within the WRTA area.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Oops, I broke it.
Yeah, hold on to it too.
Yeah, you can hang on to it.
Ginny Zukatinsky. I live at 68 West Street here in Berlin. And I drove the senior van for 3 years. And it was a very fun job. And I'm disappointed now that a driver has not been, well, you've not been able to find someone to drive. And I think a lot of the reason for that is the wages. The pay is a per diem. It offers no benefits, no sick pay. I drove all during the pandemic. And again, it was a job I took very seriously. I was on time. I love the seniors. They're just a great, great bunch. But the WRTA is not providing the personal service to bring our seniors to hospitals, such as I had a lot of St. V, UMass. They have appointments. And sadly, this is no longer being offered. Seniors have dentist appointments. I had a fellow that I used to bring to Worcester And we're no longer providing that. And we have a lovely van that's sitting. And I think it's time that you consider offering better pay, perhaps benefits. I mean, you see what bus drivers are paid, you know, your school bus drivers, et cetera. And I think you could do better, and it would be appealing to someone to take the job. And the way it is offered now, it's nearly minimum wage. You're also transporting wheelchairs. You know, that's a big deal to me, taking a wheelchair, operating the mechanical lift, securing them in. So anyway, thanks. I just wanted to say my 2 cents.
Appreciate
you.
it.
Through the chair.
Yeah, yeah.
That is one of the questions we did ask the WRTA when we met with them. Our rates are comparable to area towns. They were wondering if our pay was low, and it's not. They also said that part-time worked best from what they've seen for van drivers, because that's when you can attract folks that are retired that often don't want the full-time hours. They have posted both part-time and full-time positions and found that they were unable generally to hire at the full-time positions. So those are some of the things we talked about as well, just trying to figure out what the best way to go is.
No, I get that a per diem is less appealing than a part-time if you don't know how much you're gonna bring in or what hours you need. I mean, it is worthy of looking at. I think, again, the budget allows for a bunch of different options that are not that at the moment. Doesn't mean it can't come back. There's not currently a plan to get rid of the van. And I appreciate the comments. We'll
Keep them going.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, did the hand go back up?
Hold on.
Or is that still Bob? That's still Bob. Bob, do you have any more questions, or did you just not put your hand down?
Hold on. Let me let him talk. All right, Bob, you're up if you can unmute yourself.
All right, let's go on. All right. So thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Appreciate that. All right, next is number 5. Is there anyone from Capitol here? Not seeing any. Kristen, I don't know if you want to
Yeah,
Sure.
take capital.
brief review of Capitol?
Absolutely. Let me just actually, let me do it on here. I'll share my screen again if you give me a moment so everybody can see it over there as well as online. Five. Okay, so at the request of the moderator, we have 3 motions as part of the FY26 proposed capital improvement plan. This has been recommended favorably by both the FinCom and the Capital Planning Committee. The first motion would be using free cash, $274,403 to fund 7 articles. And they range from municipal building sidewalk repairs, which was identified in our most recent facility study as the #1 issue at the municipal offices. There is a gap, if you may have unfortunately tripped over it, when you come into this building between the sidewalk and the curb. That is a major tripping hazard that needs to be addressed. Also for highway, a replacement of a 2012 F450 with a plow and a mower vac system replacement. Over at the library, looking at sidewalk and parking lot repairs, as well as retaining wall repairs and a door replacement, and then a mower for the cemetery commission. So those are the items that would come out of free cash for capital. Sorry, my screen jumped on me. The second motion would be for $450,000 from ambulance receipts reserved. Those are receipts that are received for ambulance services to fund the replacement of A2. Many of you may have heard, we are finally about to get our A1 replacement, that was purchased in 2021 or 2022. It has taken over 35 months to arrive. And based on the replacement schedule for the ambulances, and we're looking at about 35 to 40 months for ambulance replacements now, it is time to put in the order for the replacement for A2, because that will have reached its useful life within that time frame as well. So that is neither the free cash or the ambulance receipts hit the taxpayers in terms of an assessment. Those are one-time funds that we have, so they do not impact the tax bill. Neither do public safety stabilization funds, which are the third motion. That is funding that we get from Highland Commons and Riverbridge as mitigation funding to help offset our public safety needs that we have in the community. So the remaining items that are recommended are for fire, EMS, police, and the fire overhead door replacement. There are a number of items there, including forestry gear replacement for fire, rescue tool replacement, a CPR assist device replacement, and some turnout gear. Then on the police side, a firearms upgrade and replacement, communications upgrade and replacement, and then, as I just mentioned, the overhead doors here at the fire bay that go out to the parking lot that are just over 25 years old that we have tried to repair multiple times, and they are at the point where they have to be replaced.
And for those wondering, A1 is the white ambulance
thank you.
and A2 is the red one. And the new one will also be red, so I don't know how we'll tell the difference between new red and old red, but
Find a way to-
the white ambulance will be put out probably to Municipid and see if anybody else wants it.
Yeah, there's actually a new service too we've been working with called Garage that we met the other day. They do public safety especially, and they are getting much higher rate of return
Good.
for things than Municipid, so.
That works. All right. Any questions on that article?
That'll do it. 48 Highland Street,
Okay.
Berlin, Mass.
We,
Oh, you know I'm from Berlin.
01503,
Yeah.
okay.
I know Fred does a great job, so I even hate to ask the question, but I'd rather ask it here than ask it at the town floor as you recommended. $77,000 for a sidewalk repair. Just wondering, how does that make sense?
It's the whole sidewalk. So if you go outside the building and look as you go out the door, the curb is here and the sidewalk is here. So it's a definite safety hazard that goes all the way around from Linden, front of the building, and all the way over to the back to where fire and police park over there. So unfortunately, it's not cheap to pave again, especially they have to be certain height requirements for ADA. You just can't slap a curb up. It's got to meet that information as well. Please know that all these bids that we receive, we're required to get multiple bids for that. So it's just not a random number that somebody says,
Right.
85, 85 is good.
And the 77 is not, there's not a contract with a vendor. 77 is what we believe it's going to
Mhm.
cost, that once this passes, or assuming it passes town meeting,
Right.
we would then do a procurement process that would be a closed bid process, and the best bid would get. And so just because we pass 77 at town meeting is the maximum that we're allowed to spend. If
Yep.
it actually comes in at 52 or 76,000, that's what we ultimately get spent. We used to do motions at town meeting to close out old articles. We now have sort of sunsets that sort of automatically let these close out. So if they did for 52,000, at a certain point, the remainder goes back into free cash to be spent on other articles in the future.
Cool. Ginny, you're
Hi.
back. Nice to see you again. We'll spare you the address this time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Just a quick question. Our police firearms upgrade and replacement. I'm wondering what happens with the old firearms. Are they traded in? What happens after years and years, maybe over 100, 200? All the firearms, do they have any historical value? Or what happens to them?
Do you have any idea?
I will get an answer on that for you.
All right,
We'll
hold
look
us
at you.
to that,
Yep.
at town meeting. If you want to get back up and ask, we'll make sure that,
Well, we'll make sure, we'll try at town meeting to have. this-
Eric, and more than
that-
likely Eric will be there or one of his sergeants will be there who will be able to give you a specific answer. You're more than welcome. Oh, I see a hand up. Is that still Mr. Blair?
Yeah.
All right,
Yes.
we're gonna skip him.
Yep.
Okay. Scott, you're up. Article 6.
I thought we're skipping 6 to 12.
Are we skipping 6 to 12? Not so much I paid
Because
attention.
the 6 to 12 are
Oh, that's
state
right, I
articles.
wrote due.
So Articles 6 to 12 tend to be similar articles.
Okay.
We happen every year at town meeting. There are some transfers and some moving some things around and how much we're allowed to spend in funds that sort of self-funding, that the money comes in and goes out. Also need to skip 11, which is your
Yeah, yeah.
tax spending. so.
See, I wrote skip and then I wrote
Yep.
do. Okay, this is why I need multiple notes. So we are now down to, or up to Article 13 on Mount Pisgah access. So I don't know if anyone is either in the audience from, oh, I see
Yep.
Carolyn. Here she
Carolyn and
comes.
Ethan actually is
Uh,
are here.
To talk about that item.
Let me bring Ethan. Oh, I don't know who wants to talk. I'll bring Ethan and Carolyn forward. If you both want to unmute, then you are able to speak.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
So we have a soon to be signed CR on a new parcel at that's going to add to the Pisgah, Mount Pisgah area. And we would like to provide parking. So we've contracted with, well, we haven't contracted yet, but we've got an estimate from Paul Wheeler to do the work. We tried to have the town do it, but then discovered that we can't pay town employees with town funds, basically, in this kind of context. So we decided to work with Paul Wheeler instead. It's coming out of CPA. It's going to provide, I think, 6 or 7 parking spots and 1 accessible spot. There's going to be a couple benches and some concrete pads. So if somebody's in a wheelchair, they can park on it, and a compacted stone dust. So it'll have somewhat, some access for people who are somewhat disabled.
Ethan, do you want to give the address where this is happening?
I don't recall the actual address.
So Peg, it's 0 Lyman Road.
It's what, Carolyn?
0 Lyman Road.
For those who live in town, it's the old McGrail property.
Correct.
So when you come up Linden and you turn right, left, I can't even do directions. You turn left onto Lyman.
Yeah.
There's a great big spot of land. And then right there, you see the remnants of a driveway. That was the old McGrail property. So it's that area there that will get paved and hopefully will reduce from people parking on the other side of the road and impacting traffic.
That is the goal.
Yep.
Any questions? Oh, we have a frequent flyer in the back
I'm
called
back.
Ginny. You're back.
Place to do it.
That's right. And the walk is
Okay.
much shorter than than the town meeting, and Barry will continue to tell you to talk into the mic, so we're a lot more looser.
Okay,
You're
I'm
good.
short is
You're
the
good.
problem. Okay, my question is this. We have a parking area, which I find very difficult to get in and out of. And this is the parking lot that was Cora Divine. Do I have the right name?
Yes, you do, but
Cora
that's,
Divine. And there's a kiosk there. And it's very difficult to pull in and park the way that the fence has been put. And for those of us with horses, it's impossible to bring a horse trailer and park in there. And it's a very large, I know it's a hayfield, but I thought it might be nice if they could expand that area, and which would allow us to access Mount Pisgah from that area. And this actually is right across from Lisa Wysocki's,
Mhm.
correct? yeah.
Peg, I'll
Just a
take
thought,
this.
if, I know there's a restriction, you can only ride on the very edge of the field. That's very well described at the kiosk, but it would be nice if we could bring a horse trailer and our horses and park there. Parking at the other location is not possible at the McGrail's on the street.
All right, Carolyn or Ethan.
I'll go. So the fence is, we only have an easement on that property. The town, we don't own that property. So the part along the edge of the wood line and then across the little stream up into Pisgah is part of the easement, but so isn't the area of the parking area. The fence is put up basically along the perimeter of the easement, so we don't have the ability to make it bigger. And the reason the fence got put up is because people were behaving badly and driving across the Terrian's field. So we worked with them to come up with a solution for that. So I'm sorry, Ginny, but we can't make it bigger.
And actually, that fence was moved twice to try. Yeah, it went up and then it came down and had to go back up again to try and accommodate the space and how people were pulling in, people were pulling out, so you don't get clipped when you're coming down Linden. It's just.
It's a tough spot. Yeah.
Very tough, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Ethan. Ethan, did you have anything else? I see your hand up.
No, as long as everybody's good, we're good.
All right. All right, onward to number 14. I don't know if anyone is here from historical.
Oh, I just thought of another question. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna start charging you $20 for every time you go back up. Go ahead. Of course, Ginny. What can we help you with?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My question is, do we own the McGrail property?
Carolyn, you thought you were getting away.
Hold on, I gotta promote her again.
It is. It's conservation land.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Why couldn't we? I mean, it's overgrown with brush right now, but that's nice flat land. There's even a paved driveway still there. Could we not use that?
So Jenny, that is where the parking area is gonna go. We're gonna take out the old driveway. And we're gonna go from tree line to tree line to tree line to the street. We're gonna make it as big as we can. And then we're gonna put a flat stone dust trail up into the meadow so that people who want to get out into nature but have some mobility issues have access there. And the CR does allow for us to put up some sort of covered pavilion kind of gazebo thing. So someday in the future, that may be up there too.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
So that should fit. I mean, if we wanted to bring a horse trailer,
probably.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that, that
There's
would,
not, yep, there's not going to be anything at the road that would inhibit that.
okay, good. I think that sounds wonderful.
Awesome. All right. Thank you again, Carolyn. Appreciate you and Ethan.
You're welcome. And if anybody wants to come out and help us freshen the trails on that side, they're welcome to do that.
All right. So next up is Article 14. Historical. Scott, I don't know if you want to take it, or Kristen, you want to take it? I'm not
I-
seeing anybody
I
from.
only know the briefest about it.
Sure, me too,
Yeah.
but this is another CPA project. I know Tim Wheeler is here in the audience too. If there's a specific question, he may be able to answer it. But this comes out of the historic preservation portion of the CPA Community Preservation Act funds. So it's $13,500 for accessioning and de-accessioning, which is basically cataloging and looking at the pieces of the town's very impressive clothing collection, from what I understand. So it's an assessment that will be done by a professional consultant, give the commission the opportunity to preserve certain pieces, learn how to do that properly with limited storage space. So this would fund the services of a consultant for an estimated period of 25 days and purchase of the archival supplies to support the assessment.
Questions on that? All right. Skipping down to Article 15, I'll take this one. If any of you have tried to hoof it up the gigantic concrete stairs into the town hall, you know that they're a challenge. So what we would like to request is $10,000 from CPA. What this will allow us to do is hire an architect to come in and see if there is a different alternative way to get into that building. If you're looking at the building, there's like 2 stairs right there on the right. So, you know, we need some design, we need input as to what's the easiest way to get into the front of the town hall. This is a 2-parter. The $10,000 will allow us to hire said architect, and said architect will come back and say, you need to, and it will cost. And then that's something that, you know, this time flash forward next year, you know, we might be coming back asking for money from CPA, but that's what that will do, is to see what can be done for access into 1870, because truly those stairs move. Those stairs moved when I was a Girl Scout 8,000 years ago, and the banister, the steel pipe is horrible as well when you're trying to get up and down those stairs. So that is what this money request is for CPA. Questions? All right. So Scott, you've got the next
Yep.
3, 16, 17, and 18.
16, 17, 18 are sort of related, but are individual pieces. They are positions in town that are currently elected, and it's the start of a process to move some of those to appointed. The first one being the town clerk. As we said earlier, the town clerk is actually more of an employee of the town, because it's unlike sort of select board others, there are office hours, and it's I don't know off the top of my head, I want to say it's 25 to 30 hours a week. 20 right now. And the job has become over the years one that requires sort of more training and requirements on it. And the idea that in a town our size, we would always have someone who is both willing and able and trained to do that position seems unlikely for the long run. And instead of potentially waiting a couple elections and discovering we don't have someone, to start moving it to the process of moving it to appointed now. The rules would be, this would something that would also have to pass at the ballot at town election. And even so, the state sort of process around this assumes people in those positions. So the current clerk would serve out their term at least. And then when they would naturally be up, we would then look at either reappointing them, or if they were moving on to somewhere else, a chance to do sort of an open hire. And so it's to simplify that process. Couldn't tell you, I have no memory, and maybe when was the last time there was a contested election for town clerk? Right. And that's the other reason, is that every time there's something on the ballot, there is costs in people taking out the paper. There are costs of printing the ballot. There are costs of counting the ballot. And it's something where really there's not a sort of a competitive piece for. It just didn't seem like something we should continue doing.
Questions on that one?
You have a question from the audience online.
All righty.
Give me a moment.
Yeah.
I can, sorry, I gotta stop sharing and all of that. Hold on.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Carol O'Connell, 68 Barnes Hill Road, Berlin. And by continue,
Carol.
Hi. I understand all of this. I know a lot of town clerks in other towns are appointed. What would be the recommended impact, or not the recommended, but what is the impact going to be on our taxes going forward if this becomes a full-time job? What are we anticipating this is going to be if we take this out of an elected position?
There is no plan changed in number of hours or salary, unlike any other position here. And that this is just, the sole thing this does is take what is currently elected and turn it into appointed.
Okay, that's currently now. Can we fast forward? You know, I
I
have a
think
financial background and I just hate this 1 year at a time thing that we
So,
do with everything.
if in the
So,
future, this
Yeah.
position became full-time, or in this position, in the future, this position was done by someone else, I believe the salary we would pay for that would be no different if it was appointed or elected.
salary would be no different if it's appointed or
In
elected.
other words, that how this person goes into the job does not
Yep.
change how much they get paid. So the number of hours this job works is set by the budget, and the amount of money this person gets paid is set by their sort of contract, and also the budget that passed through town meeting. So how they get to the job does not change how much they get paid.
Okay, and who does the hiring for a position like this?
We would have to work that part out. If this ends up passing, it would likely go through the select board.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on, oh, Mr. Wheeler? Ginny, you were getting back up, weren't you? And Tim like took your spot. Okay.
Tim Wheeler. Does this work? 232 Pleasant Street. I think Scott's right, but he may also be wrong. And that is that what happens in communities where someone's elected for long periods of time is that I don't know as the salaries necessarily keep up with the real world. And I think we discover with an appointed position that the salary would have to be adjusted to be competitive. That's my impression. And I don't know off the top of my head what this town clerk gets now, but I can't imagine it's competitive. So I think we'd find that there'd be an increase.
Yeah, your typical, it's varies, but typical town clerk salary is anywhere between $80,000 and $90,000. And part-time right now, the salary is $42,000 for 20 hours. So it is not uncompetitive at the 20-hour-a-week rate right now. But I would imagine there is a possibility in the future that some of those hours might need to be adjusted. But I don't think the appointed or elected has any bearing on it. I think it has to do with the workload that the town faces, and I don't believe we can ask people to work for free because that's not legal. So.
Ginny, going back up?
Just one quick question. On Article 16, 17, and 18, I'm asking why the town clerk, constable, and trustee of trust funds are the three selected for this. We have a Board of Health, and I'm questioning the other departments. Why not include all?
So this came from me, and I was advised that going after potentially all the positions that might be better off appointed than elected all at once was a lot to carry at one town meeting. I think some of it is to look at the ones that might to get a sense of the town. Maybe the town really wants all these positions still to be elected, and there's no sense to have a dozen articles and discover that just one by one they all get voted down. And so I personally picked the three that I thought were best suited to go from elected to appointed. In that the clerk is mostly an employee. The constables who have been elected have been mostly delegate their authority to the police sort of anyway, and that the trustees of trusts have met twice since 2015. And so I picked those three as the three to start with. There might be other bodies that might be better appointed over elected. But I wanted to get a sense of the town's appetite for moving more things from elected to appointed going further. And in some respects, that now explains what I was thinking about for Articles 17 and 18.
Questions on those three articles? 19. This one's me. Moving to a 5-member board. Having a 3-member board is difficult at times. When you go down to 2 members like Scott and I, if there's an item that comes up and he's for it and I'm against it, well, no vote. If he's out for business and I'm out for wherever, there's no meeting. Has to wait until both of us are back in town. So going to a 5-member board, and as Scott alluded to earlier, it's been a while since the board positions have been opposed. It would be nice to get in new blood to this position. If you have a 5-member board right now, Kristen wants something done, Scott or I have to put our hand up and say, we'll do it. We can't work as a committee. He and I can't have a chat together because we've just blown right through open meeting law. Someone will say you two are kibitzing on something and coming back under the guise of you're working on a project. With a 5-member board, 2 of you can work together. If you're interested, I did some fact gathering because, well, that's what we do. And according to the Massachusetts Municipal Association, the Municipal Directory and Map, there are, fun little facts, 291 cities and towns that have a select board. Could be select board, could be selectmen, but there are 291. There are 140 towns that have a select board of 3. I picked out towns that were close in our population and close in our registered voters: Essex, Sunderland, West Brookfield, and West Newbury. Now, if you go to a 5 board, there are 150 towns that have a board. Again, similar in population and registered voters are Brimfield, Hubbardston, and Provincetown. Berlin's growing. People need access to select board. There are people that go to Scott. There are people that go to me. Obviously, we want to be accessible to everyone. When you have 5 people on a board, you're going to have that opportunity to get out there and talk to more folks. Let's see, some other advantages. Again, with other people here, you bring in broader experiences. You bring in broader knowledge. You bring in additional skill sets. And remember, it's the quality of the person who's running, not the quantity. This is a tough job. It's you put in a lot of hours and you sometimes get a lot of praise and sometimes you get a lot of flack. It depends. But I think that if we go to 5, some people may be more interested in coming aboard rather than just us 3 here. There's been some, you might have problems with collaboration since you have 5 people. Well, you also might have a better chance of getting something passed if there's 5 compared to if there's just 2 or sometimes 3. So that is why I'm requested. And you might wonder, how long has this been around? Lancaster and Sterling just went to 5, or they're going to 5. For those thinking, oh my God, they're going to have this enacted for next May. No, it's a multi-year process and policies, and we've got to work with the state and we've got to figure out, if someone runs and they get the most amount of votes, do they get the 3-year seat? Does someone who run and get the second amount of votes, they get a 2-year seat? There's all that logistics that need to be worked out ahead of time. So it's nothing that's going to be in play anytime soon. The advantage with having 2 close by towns, if this passes, we can start going over to them and ask what worked well, what didn't, what pitfalls did you run into? What suggestions, would you make? I found articles back dated 2012 from Sudbury about why a 5-member board works. 2017, Milton had one, and recently is 2022, Holliston has one. So it's not, oh my God, I woke up one morning and thought, oh, wouldn't it be more fun to have 5 people at the table than 3? So that is where this is coming from.
It is counterintuitive to think that, and I believe it to be true as well, is that on a 5-member select board, it is a little bit less work for each of us, and then it might be more appealing for more people to be on the select board. And so as the people who worry that really the last contested election, I think, was mine in
Yours.
2020.
Yep.
And we might end up with more people interested in more contested elections with a 5-person one. I had hoped at one point there'd be more interest once we had a town administrator, because the amount of work it took to be the department heads and do all the personnel stuff on top of all the stuff the select board does as 3 was overwhelming. But that I still think going to 5 is the right. And again, it's the beginning of a multi-year process. It also would have to have passed town election.
Correct.
It involves the legislature. It involves the legislature.
Questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions? All right. Number 20, Scott.
That's that.
Oh, I didn't see ya. Sorry. See, if
Tim
I had moved a little bit quicker, then, I wouldn't have been able, I know, Mary.
Tim Wysocki, 133 Derby Road. I just wanted to make a comment that as a chair of a committee, it is very nice, and I look at you, Peg, because you're my liaison, to have a select board liaison at your meetings. It is a important thing. It allows you to address your concerns directly with your appointing authority, as well as someone who can, work with you to get things done. So I think that having increased numbers of individuals to cover the board meetings that we have is to the good, and it also cuts down on the workload on the 3 that are currently in the seat. Thank you.
Or 2 in this case.
2. And for those interested in how Scott and I were making decisions, we decided on rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. It was the best method that we could come up with, so.
Yeah, I too am all for a 5-person board. I'm not sure everybody understands the limitations of a 3-person board, that when any 2 of you are even in a room together, if you speak at all, you're considered a quorum, which means you're breaking
Correct.
open meeting laws. I'm not sure that's kind of a broad knowledge among town. And I think it's an important point for you to make at town meeting, so that people understand when 3 people board comes to the meeting, it's the first you're discussing anything. With a 5-person board, 2 of you can talk this, and then 2 different of you can talk that, and you can come to some consensus or some points of discussion before your meeting.
Yeah, there was a meeting with BBRSD at Tohoto. I sat in the first row.
Right.
Scott sat 6 rows behind me.
We also
Just so-
posted it as a select board meeting, just in case, so we could have gotten up and talked if none, but there are several cases. And we're both very good about it. And, when we cross paths in public, we usually there's someone else there and we're talking about gardening or vacationing or frustrations of work. But it would be great on a 5-person board if the 2 people who are the most opposite on the topic could get together outside the meeting and figure out where the compromise might be and then present something back. It makes the meetings potentially run more efficiently as well.
Awesome. All right, now we're moving on. Transfer and disposition of Legion Hall. Here you go,
I was
Scott.
gonna say, I could talk about it. I don't know if the housing trust wants that there's some people present, but I can take this. The housing trust, which has been around for a little bit now, has been looking for properties in town to develop into some affordable housing. It is, despite all the land we think we own, actually we do own a lot of land as a town, but most of it, almost all of it is in conservation. And in looking around, we've only found this one plot of land that really works well for an affordable housing renovation. It is the old Legion Hall. It is the old West School. I don't know my north, south, east, West School. We've believed they can be renovated in a way that preserves the external structure of it, keeps its historic character, puts the land back on the tax rolls, and has a lot of and potentially housing for a owner occupied and an affordable level. So there's a lot of values of this town that get checked by doing it. The first step of that process is taking the land that is currently on the town's rolls and transferring it over to the housing trust. Once it's on the housing trust, then there's an RFP to find the right developer. But the motion that we'll be making will be to preserve the historic structure going forward and to turn it into something that is owner occupied affordable housing. And so this will be the first step of a process that the housing trust would then take on from there.
All right.
Melissa Broder, 172 South Street. How many units would be projected to be there?
I believe this is projected to be a single family home.
Okay.
It's on Lincoln Street.
I don't know where that is.
So if you're if you're heading into Clinton, you go past through Five Corners and Bridge Realty is right here. There is a street right here on your left. If you go too fast, you're gonna zip by it.
It's a
The
very
road's
short street.
The road's about this long. So when you go around it, it truly is a single
Yeah.
single
It was
building.
a single room schoolhouse. It's been the American Legion Hall for a little bit. It's a white square building, set back from the road a little bit.
And it's 0.74 acres, so you're not gonna have bazillion,
0.46, thank you. Yep.
you're not gonna have bazillion McMansion houses up there. It's
Awesome.
cool. Thank you.
Are you, just to clarify, are you talking about renovating within its existing footprint?
Renovating the existing building.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yes, renovating the existing building. Yes.
Hello, Jeff Romanek, Lincoln Road. I'm the actual direct abutter to the schoolhouse property. I wanted Historic Society to be able to save that building. Unfortunately, Berlin or the Historic Society doesn't have the funding to save that building. Because I think we keep losing all these historic buildings. We lose a little piece of Berlin each time. But I think I think if we're gonna do something there, I think housing's a good thing. I just have a couple questions. The warrant question led me to think of a couple questions that I just need answered, and as the abutter, so I know what's going on and moving forward. In the warrant, it says that the housing, if it gets transferred, that the housing trust is puts it up for sale or lease. And that's what it says in the warrant. So I thought, it was under my understanding that they're going to give it to Habitat. How does that work? Can you clarify that?
Yeah, Lisa, you can correct me if I get it wrong, but it will be an RFP process. So the Housing Trust will create a proper request for proposals where they'll outline what they would like to be done with it, which I believe is renovation of the building and protecting the external structure. So I believe it is not, I know it's going to preserve an historic building in town. And that really any person, although we've definitely been working with Habitat, I sit on the Housing Trust as the select board representative, is that anyone who could preserve it for an owner occupied affordable housing could bid on it. I believe the bid is not necessarily like how much they're going to pay for it. It's probably bidding on how much of subsidy that it will take to actually do it that would come out of the Housing Trust funds. And then from those bids, the Housing Trust would then select one. And if they think there is a bidder that will meet the requirements of the Housing Trust, that it would be turned over to that organization or company to renovate the building for a single family home.
If it was to be transferred by the vote, and because that lot's so small, as we've discussed before, and they couldn't engineer the septic system there to be for housing, I just redid my whole septic system, so I kind of know the geography of that area. What happens to that property then?
I believe the intent is to try to time this so that once the town meeting vote has happened, but before all the costs have gone into the legal work to transfer it over to the Housing Trust, the Housing Trust will pay for a perk test to make sure that the septic could work. If it turns out it doesn't happen, the Housing Trust will inform the town we're not interested in taking it, and that the legal costs of putting the deed to transfer to the Housing Trust, the legal cost to transfer it back will not be spent.
So if that, whether it doesn't get transferred or if they can't do the engineering, the town obviously, due to the facility study, you guys still want to get rid of that property, I would assume.
You're right. If this didn't come to fruition, it would come back to the select board to figure out what to do next. I don't think we've had any conversations. I think the real hope is that this turns into some affordable housing at the site.
At that point, if it doesn't though, I'm just trying to think of the future. Can the town do like an open bid on that property, like public auction or an open bid to that property?
Yes.
If it doesn't go through for them,
That
can
would-
the town do that to raise some funds? It's a taxpayer-owned property, and at that point, you could sell it at auction, at least get some money
Yep.
for it.
We would clearly entertain something along those lines.
Okay.
It is because of the Housing Trust. Look, I can tell you it's one of the few plots of land the town owns that's not in a conservation restriction. So it is one of the few out there that would potentially have some value if it was sold.
And
at
would the
a
Housing
auction.
Trust also be interested in maybe in the conversation, including tunnels for towers to help a veteran out, where that could be also considered low income. You could help a veteran out, because when we talked to Habitat, they couldn't guarantee that we could do something for a veteran. And my feeling is without veterans, we don't get to have these meetings. That's also, if
I
they
know
could
that has been
consider
raised
that.
with, I know that's been raised with Habitat, and the Housing Trust is aware of that request and has been looking into potential ways to honor it. I don't know if there's a legal way of doing it, but I know that there's been some attempts. I don't know if you want to, sadly, if you're going to say something, Lisa, you should get to a microphone.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
So the way that, in all likelihood, typically when you're requesting an RFP for a community affordable build, Habitat is likely to be the only one who responds to that RFP. I can say that just based on the experience they've had. They do a lottery process, I believe, where people put in applications and do those things. We can, as a town, request that they give preference to applications from veterans, but they cannot guarantee that a veteran would apply. They cannot guarantee that a specific person, whether it be somebody from Berlin, whether it be, but we can ask them to give preference to a veteran.
Thanks.
Jeff, you good?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to Article 21, Earth Removal Bylaw. I get the short ones. Obviously my rock, paper, scissors did not go as well as planned. For those that have been around, we had an earthworks board. Many years ago, the board disbanded. We had a like-kind soil bylaw. We had an importation bylaw. Does anybody want to guess if there were contradictions in those two documents? The answer would be yes. So what we have done is that we have worked with our town council and given them both bylaws, current bylaws that exist, to come up with one for this. I'm certainly not going to read the entirety of this, but there are some items in here that I wanted to talk to you about. It gives specifics on how much soil, loam can be removed. Now it says 500 cubic yards of soil. I went to figure out what 500 cubic yards was. 1 to 2 cubic yards fit in a pickup. So that kind of gives you an idea of what 500 is. It's also 842,000 pounds. Just saying. Hey, you know what? I do the research here. It talks about permits that are going to be required to do this, and it's very specific as to what it's going to allow. There's fees now that are in place. There's conditions for granting those permits, whether you're removing it or whether you're bringing it in. We're looking for bonds. So if you're looking to remove some soil or loam or sand, we're going to ask you to put some money up front so that if something goes wrong, there's money to pay for it. If nothing goes wrong, then you get your money back. The like-kind soil, for that, there's very specific contents that are prohibited. So what has to come in is soil. What can't come in is soil that contains debris, trash, rebar, concrete, clay, seashells, asphalt, glass, or any other solid waste. So it is truly just soil that is coming into the town. There's very specific restrictions on conservation of where this can come in from and where it can go to. The soil needs to be tested. You just can't have a big old dump truck driving up Insert Road with a bunch of dirt and dropping it off. It needs to be tested to make sure that it falls within these new regulations that we have. The local transportation plan, we need to know how they're coming in, how they're going out, what time you're coming in, what time you're going out. And guess what? With this, we get to limit you. So if you say, I'm bringing in 20, we say, no, you can't bring in 20. If you say you're bringing in 10 and we find out that you're bringing in 20, guess what? Goes the permit. So we're trying to tighten this down a little bit so that truly what comes into Berlin is good soil, what gets moved around in Berlin is good soil, and we're not a dumping ground for somebody wanting to get rid of soil, whatever, filled with crap, which I suppose is the polite way of saying it. So I encourage you to take a look through this, to read it. I went through and just highlighted some key points, but I think it's a lot tighter than what we have. I think it's protecting neighbors, unfortunately, that have to deal with dump trucks whizzing up and down their road. It has to deal with neighbors who unfortunately get dump trucks whizzing up and down their road, and they shouldn't be. And well, there's zero enforcement ability with the current bylaws that we have. Now we have them put in place, so doing it a little bit better.
I also think this is better for people who are bringing in soil because it's just a clearer process. There are definitely people who tried to do something, people who had intent to try to follow the rules, and one law said you could and one law said you couldn't, and different committees were giving them different answers. And I think this, even when people have the best intent, have harder times trying to follow the rules. And so I think it just makes it also easier to follow the rules.
And enforce the rules that are out there, because I think that has hampered us at times. You can't show me where I can't. Well, I can't. Well, then go away. All right. Accessory dwelling units. What? Question?
No, sorry.
Oh,
That's the previous.
Oh, you do have someone with their hand up.
oh, someone with their hand up?
Hold on a moment. I'll
Carol.
promote them.
Carol?
There you go.
Carol, you're back.
You just have to.
I'm
unmute.
back. Yeah, I happen to be one of those that lives on Barnes Hill Road with those trucks going up to Maplewood. So I understand that that's all, behind us and there's nothing we can do about it, but will this have any impact on the future with the trucks?
For Maplewood, no. Unfortunately, that's an agreement that is in place,
Okay.
so this will not touch anything to do with that. It will only, if there's another project in town, it will impact that.
Okay, so that's my next question. Is there any foresight into the projects in town that this will impact and help
I
us
don't
with?
believe- Right. I don't believe there's an existing, I think much of the development in town, I mean, we had, there's big malls that are done. I don't know of a project this impacts. This was done out of a desire to just sort of simplify. I think it's been on the back burner of us for a while. Sort of based on the Maplewood experience. There was a quick, the like-kind soil was put into place relatively quickly. After it's in place, we discovered some conflicts to it. One of the things that this has in place that neither of the two ones have is that your permit's only good for a year and you have to come back and get it renewed.
Yep.
And so so a project that said you could import, let's say 2,000, cubic yards, you're not doing it slowly over a 10 or 15-year period, that you have a year to get it in. You can renew it potentially, but that it's not a sort of forever project.
Right.
And so it is sadly, it will not impact things that are already existing, but it is taking some lessons learned and some feedbacks we had and some of the lessons learned from other towns even and tried to sort of make a clearer process.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Good? You're welcome, Carol. Anyone else? All right. On to the accessory dwelling units. Ms. McDonald, I am not seeing anybody else from planning who is there. This will teach you to come to these meetings. I don't know.
Peg.
Oh, do we?
Mr. Wheeler's
Oh,
in the
Tim.
audience.
I don't, he's hidden by Scott and Victoria. So never mind, Carolyn, you're off the hook. All right, Mr. Wheeler, the floor is yours. Actually, you can stay there because I think the next one is yours too.
Tim Wheeler, 232 Pleasant Street, Planning Board. Carolyn can do this if she wants to.
I'll allow her to speak in case you'd like her
There
to
you
add
go.
anything.
She's
How's
out
that?
listening to the peepers in her backyard. She's not speaking.
I'm hearing the peepers through the windows.
Mhm.
But Tim, please go ahead.
Last year, the governor created the
Wow.
It's a mic drop moment.
Yeah.
I didn't even touch it.
Tim's trying to get out of the conversation, Carolyn, just saying.
Yep.
We'll try again. Last year, the governor created the Affordable Housing Act, and it had a great many positions that changed within the Commonwealth in order to try to promote the creation of more housing. But one part was the accessory dwelling unit section. And what that meant was that by right, someone can add an accessory dwelling to an existing single-family residential lot. And so as a result, any of those lots after, I guess, February 1st this year, potentially could have someone come in and say, I want to add another dwelling unit or an attached dwelling unit. Now, in our zoning bylaws, we've got in-law apartments, attached accessory apartments, and accessory apartments, but all those require a special permit, and this provides for those accessory dwelling units to be added by right. So what the advice was from the Commonwealth was that communities ought to make some adjustments in their zoning bylaw, and that's essentially what we've done here. It talks about the process, and the units are allowed to be up to 900 square feet, which means they're relatively small. They still have to comply with setback provisions within the zoning bylaw, and they'd have to meet Board of Health requirements. So, you know, there may be restrictions that would make it difficult in a community without municipal water or sewage to just go ahead and begin to add these units. But we decided that we needed to use the state guidelines to some degree and create this section to be added to the zoning bylaw. The planning board's in the process. We've applied for a Department of Energy and Environmental Affairs, an EEA grant to redo the zoning bylaw. And the decision about that was supposed to be made last November, but we haven't heard yet. But the goal would be to put this into effect at this town meeting and then potentially modify it to integrate it more completely into the zoning bylaw. One of the things that's included in this is a number of definitions, and we've included them in the section rather than in the definition section of the zoning bylaw, because in some instances they're in conflict. So we've used the state mandated language and embedded it in the zoning section that's going to be specifically addressing these accessory dwelling units. So they won't be in conflict with the definitions that we've got in our definition section. For instance, floor area by the state regulation is different than what we've used for floor area. So we decided to segregate those. And that's all I have about that one.
So let's say that I wanted to add one to my house.
No.
Well, okay, thank you.
Simple.
That was simple. That was easy. Next question. How does it hook up to sewer? How does it hook up to water? If
So-
it's in the back of the house, do I need to add a driveway?
So you've
Fire could get back there? That was kind of weird.
You've still got to manage to comply with the setback requirements. So
Okay.
20 feet to the side lot, 50 feet from the front yard, all that sort of thing. And you'd have to go to the Board of Health and make sure that the bedroom you were adding was still in compliance with the septic system that you already had. So if you've got a 4-bedroom unit
Yep.
already and you're maxed out in terms of your septic and you want to add another bedroom, you've got to figure out some way to eliminate a bedroom in the house or not go forward with the proposal.
Okay.
So you've still got to meet those other standardized requirements, but we can't require you to do anything other than what's required of someone that wants to build a single-family home. So, you know, that's why the special permit option isn't available. I mean, we said it would be nice if you could have site plan review, for instance. So an abutter might be able to come to a hearing and say, where is it going to be located exactly? But site plan review isn't allowed in our bylaw for single-family dwellings that would be built, so we can't provide for it with accessory dwelling units either.
Any other questions from Mr. Wheeler?
So I had a question from the audience. May I?
Yeah, sure.
I'll
Absolutely.
repeat it. So can you have more than one unit on a site? Communities could allow more than one. We've decided not to do that. There are, and that's something that we could address later on when we rewrite the zoning in its entirety. We might very well say that a second unit could be provided by special permit. In that case, you can use a special permit provision. So they can be attached, they can be detached, it's fairly flexible. And it's a good opportunity to, we've talked about this with the Housing Trust. I mean, we're trying to create big A affordable units, but there's also the need to create small A affordable units that don't meet the requirements to become part of our subsidized housing inventory, but you still end up with a unit that's going to be less expensive to live in. So that's the goal.
Are there any restrictions? I mean, does it have to be family or could I rent it out to?
No,
So, okay.
because you can't do that with a single family unit. It can't be done with this either.
Okay. No questions?
Yep.
All right, Mr. Wheeler, if you could continue with the floodplain bylaw.
So this is another situation where state and federal regulations were modified, floodplain FEMA maps change. It was suggested to us that the language that we had in our zoning bylaw that created the floodplain district really wasn't up to par with what needed to be done in order to meet those changing regulations that the state and the federal government have worked on. So we've in this article, we're eliminating the current section that deals with the floodplain district and replacing it with an entirely new section. And again, we've embedded the definitions into the section because over time, we want to make sure as we rewrite the zoning bylaw that definitions are compatible with those that are already in existence. Basically, what this does is it talks about the permitting process, the enforcement process, and anytime anybody wants to get involved with the floodplain. Berlin's fortunate in that, I think, to my knowledge anyway, there's just one building that's in the floodplain, and it was McCann's Ice Cream on West Street that was an ice house essentially and needed to be in the floodplain. So, it's we're lucky. And we've got a lot of flood control activity in town through the Sowasco project. So, all those dams help prevent a lot of problems. So basically, this is a mandated provision from the state to modify our zoning so we can be in compliance. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
No, these are good questions.
These are good questions. No, I don't want your address because you haven't moved in the past 20 minutes.
Happy to it.
Mhm.
I'm sorry that I'm slow to get up, but I have just one more ADU question. And that is, it says in here, you're going to need this question from me now. So when you present at town meeting, okay, for short-term rentals only. So I just want to understand, first of all, can I sell my unit to somebody? No, probably not. And can I do long-term rental? What does short-term mean?
Or in compliance with state and town regulations.
So if I redo my garage, can I sell it? Or is it only rental? You know what I mean?
No, you can rent it.
Okay, but I can't sell it to somebody.
You can't, it means sell a part of your property? No.
I didn't think so, but I just wanted to make sure.
That would be sort of condominiumizing it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so I haven't seen anything, that's a good question. We'll have to research that to make sure we can answer that properly, but
think you'd have to subdivide in order to sell part of your property.
Would still have to follow.
Yeah, yeah, that's not,
Oh, sure. Yeah, right. You'll have to ask Jay when he's here.
yes,
Right.
no.
If allowed. Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and one of the concerns has been with the Airbnb issue and how you might very well end up with outside owners owning multiple properties within a community and then, you know, being absentee. Yeah, no, so. Yes, ma'am.
Excellent question. Thank you for giving him additional information to stand up at town meeting. Appreciate that. Right. Were there any other questions on floodplain for Mr. Wheeler? All right, well,
Just say, and so, we weren't going to for 24, 25, but that sort of takes us to the sort of what would be the end of town meeting, the end of the warrants. Just to note that's both in the town meeting warrant is that there are not just elections for officers at town election, which will be the Monday after town meeting, but there are the 4 questions related to turning 3 positions from elected to appointed and the 5-person select board. And so even though there's not really contested positions on the ballot, these 4 questions are important to do turnout on and express your opinions on. And the select board is encouraging yes on all of them, but that putting those 3 positions from elected to appointed and going to the 5-person select board.
were there any other general types of questions? I know we covered a lot. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Very insightful questions. Anything that we can answer that you've looked over and we might have skipped on that you're like, ugh, I wish they had talked about? Nada? All right.
And I think we'll hang around for a couple more minutes, although Peg and I in different sides of the room, so we don't accidentally violate open meeting laws. But I thank everyone for coming.
Absolutely.
Do we have to do a formal adjournment of this? Because we formally call this to order.
And get out and vote
Right.
and bring 12 friends to make sure that you come and
I
vote.
move that we adjourn the town information session.
Well, I'm not going to second that. So that's what happens
And
with a
now we're
two-member
just stuck
board.
and we're in meeting hours.
All right, fine. I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you
Awesome.
very